Hi there, Andy Lockwood from Lockwood College Prep, and today we're going to be talking about how to get money for college in today's turbulent pandemic or post-pandemic, hopefully soon, times. And I'm an author. I run a college advisory firm in Long Island on the North Shore, and very excited to spend a little bit of time with you to give you this information. So I'm going to go right into this presentation so that I respect your time. And I just want to warn you, I'm going to be packing a lot of information in a relatively short period of time, 55 minutes or so. So get ready to take some notes. If you've downloaded my outline by now, that'd be great. I don't know if I can figure out how to post that next to this video, the outline that I was using. But either way, you're going to want to really take a lot of notes. So here we go with a screen share. And that should be working. So I'll put on the old cheaters here. Here we go. How to get financial aid and merit aid in today's turbulent times, and 12 costly mistakes and how to avoid them. I just want to warn you that a lot of the stuff that comes out of my mouth, I'm not totally sure what may pop out, is not necessarily going to be the same stuff that you've heard from guidance counselors or other parents, or even on college visits. It's going to be based largely on my experiences, my truths that I've been experiencing over the last 20 years as a college advisor. And I'm not here to say that I have a stronghold on what's true or what's not true, but it's probably going to be different. I know that from feedback because I give these presentations all the time. So it's up to you to decide whether you think what I'm saying makes sense or not. So I just wanted to warn you there. And I'm not really that politically correct. So consider yourself warned. If you're offended easily, you may not want to stick around for this. But if you do stick around and you are offended, I promise to refund you for every last penny you paid to attend this free, non-refundable presentation. So I have a gift for you. So if you want a copy of my latest book, this made it to #1 new release, bestseller in a couple different categories, How to Negotiate Your Crappy Financial Aid Merit Aid Offer, you can get a free copy at collegenegotiations.com. Okay. I want to reward you for showing up and getting this information. So that's a freebie for you. You can download a PDF of it. It's also available on Amazon and on Amazon Kindle. So, okay, here's what we're going to be covering today. Here's what's on tap. We're going to discuss eligibility killing mistakes you must avoid if you want to qualify for every last dollar that you deserve. I'm going to share how to negotiate your financial aid or merit aid award, and shocking truths about how college admissions really works. There's a lot of urban legend, misconception, and frankly, horrible surprises, which we call admissions Armageddon, each year, when blindsided parents who should have known otherwise but don't, and kids find out that they didn't get into schools that they thought they were going to get into. Okay, as a word of warning, I said this before, it's not the same old you've heard from your guidance counselor. It may contradict what you have learned from other sources, and this is not hypothetical or urban legend or fake news or bragging at all, like some other parents seem to do when they ostensibly give college advice. It's based on real world experiences with clients who frankly pay us a lot of money for the results that I'm going to be talking about here. So it's all free, and it is a lot for me to dump out 20 plus years of experience in the next 45, 50 minutes. But I'm going to do my best. I'm not going to hold anything back. You are in the right place if you're stressed out about how to pay for college in today's challenging times, or confused about how to make a college list, or you have no clue whether your kid can even get into a decent college, and you feel like you're not getting adequate help from your guidance counselor, or maybe you just don't even know where to start. You don't know what the right questions are to ask. I hear that a lot also. What I promise is you're going to learn how to multiply odds of getting in and easily and comfortably afford to be able to send your son or daughter to their dream college that they deserve to get into without getting ripped off or bankrupting yourself or mortgaging your home or retirement up to the eyeballs, even if you think you can't qualify for anything. The only thing I want to ask is at the end, if you feel like we've done a good enough job, is it okay if we give you a great offer to consider? And there's nothing to buy. It's just an offer to talk to us. If this sounds fair to you and you're with me live, type yes in the chat here, and I'll see that in a minute because there's a little delay. And if you're watching this on replay, just do it anyway. Just talk to yourself in chat. If you're wondering, who I am and why you should pay attention, that's my wife, the good-looking one. This is not Beauty and the Beast. This is we are literally a mom and pop shop. We do shows, talk show. We do we're on the news every once in a while, including recently. I've written a few books. I guess the most popular book is How to Pay Wholesale for College. I've also written a book about the college essays. I wrote this book last year, How to Get Into Your Dream College Without Lying, Bribing, or Photoshopping. And of course, my latest book on college negotiations. I told you I get on TV a little bit. I do a lot of presentations like the one that you're watching. And sometimes people say, like, well, how'd you even get into this field? Like, I get that question at least once or twice a week. My own story is I attended at the time, the fourth most expensive college in the country. My dad, who was the sole breadwinner, was an artist, self-employed freelance photographer, which really translates into low income. My dad was always sort of cavalier about the whole, process. When I remember talking to him about what I was borrowing, I didn't really know the right questions to ask. And his attitude was, he literally said, don't worry, it's all going to work out. Just, get to the best school that you can get to. Well, how did winging it work out? I racked up a student loans. I had all kinds of horrible credit issues and getting denied for loans and all kinds of stress. And I don't wish that on anyone. And my wife and we have 4 kids. We don't want them to go through this. We don't want you to go through anything like this either. That was what motivated me to get into this field more than 20 years ago, to help others avoid what I went through. Because I learned the hard way, but you can cheat. You can actually fast track to all the good stuff without the years of expense and pain that I had to endure. And today we have clients who also get great results from us, all walks of life. We have student athletes, business owners, Ivy Leaguers, Ivy Plus, less competitive schools, you name it, all shapes and sizes. One great comment that I always think about is from superintendent. At the time when I was working with Dr. O'Hara, he was a high school principal, when I was a superintendent, who talked about the results that we got. Scott Sanders from Long Beach was kind of funny. He thought, when we first started talking, he was wondering, sometimes I forget about, the results our clients get. So this is helping me also. He said I was so nonchalant that he wondered if it was a whole scam, but he was very happy because he said that I got him 5 times the amount that he invested to work with me, and it's the best money he ever spent. Here's some examples, some recent examples. This is really recent, of a client who was initially awarded a total of $9,000 and change from University of Southern California, and then we negotiated it. He actually negotiated, but I walked him through everything. I wrote the letters, and we worked on it together, and we were able to bump that up to almost $38,000, which was an increase of $28,488. And I believe he's going to get that next year also. So this was a great result. We've had clients, get into grade schools. This is also very recent, actually from about a week ago as I'm doing this, where Olivia got off the wait list for Yale after not getting into other easier schools. That was a huge coup. A lot of ups and downs in this process. That's another reason I'm showing you this. So let's talk about what's going on out there besides the obvious. So admissions rates were dropping and we'll see what happens once everything settles with the pandemic. College costs are continuing to defy logic and skyrocket, but also we're in an interesting environment now. Currently, we'll see how long this lasts, where colleges are scrambling to recruit and hit their enrollment targets. That's why I think there was a lot of waitlist action this past summer. I didn't mention this in the beginning because I didn't want to show off, but I'm actually psychic. I do on an 8-ball. Pearl got the crystal ball, probably because of her manicure. And here's what I think is going to happen. So I think that we're going to see a lot of colleges going out of business, or at least consolidating. I don't think we're going to see international students stop coming, mostly because they are highly desirable because they pay full price. I think it is going to be slightly harder for, at least for 2021 kids to get into college, because they're competing with a lot of 2020 kids who are maybe not going, or deferring, or reapplying next year. And I don't think that the standardized tests are going away anytime soon. They're not dead yet. I'll explain that a little bit later. I think they've been they received a flesh wound, but they're not dead yet. That's the Monty Python reference here on that slide there. Very professional, right? So I think all this stuff is just a continuation of a trend that happened, that started long before coronavirus. The elephant is no longer sleeping. It's up. College costs have gone up by 1,100% in 25 years. State universities, the cheaper schools, have gone up 55% in the last decade. I saw an article about that recently. Student debt is out of control. Defaults are out of control. It takes ridiculously long to graduate college in 4 years, which we could talk about, but I don't think I have time here. The vast majority of kids switch majors, which is not that big a deal unless you do it a couple of times, and then it adds up if you have to spend an extra year. So many kids, even before coronavirus, were not working in jobs that required college degrees. They had all this money that their parents sank into these, colleges, $100,000, $250,000, $300,000, only to end up home in the basement, perhaps working for DoorDash or something. Employers say that, the vast majority of employers also say that kids just are not ready to work. They're unprepared for the workforce. So do you see why we can't afford to just wing it? We need a plan. That's why I was sharing all that with you. So that's what we're going to be doing today. It's not your fault. This whole system is rigged. And I don't mean that in a nefarious way. I'm just saying that the system is really against you. You've got to succeed despite the system. Guidance counselors, first of all, they're not trained in financial aid, so they just don't get this. It's not their fault. The ratio of student to guidance counselor is more than 400 to 1 nationally, which is crazy. Guidance counselors report that 20% of the time is about all they spend on college advisory related stuff, only because they're too busy with other stuff like schedule changes or truancies, or you name it, mental health. I mentioned they're not trained. Ditto for accountants. Most accountants don't have any clue about how financial aid works, the rules and the regulations, but that doesn't stop a lot of them from giving advice, which can be dangerous if they give you the wrong advice, because they're too busy keeping up with tax changes. And you have plenty of company. You are not alone, because this is what the simplified view of the financial aid formulas looks like. This is the schematic from the U.S. Department of Education, and this is what they, if you can see this at the bottom, this is what they refer to as the simplified view behind the FAFSA, which is the easier financial aid form of the two most popular ones. So imagine what your life would be like without tossing and turning and stressed out about how to possibly afford college, or without frustration that your kid, your son or your daughter isn't doing what he needs to do to get into a top school, or what your life would be like without the uncertainty about what colleges you should visit, what courses and tests you should take, your kids should take, applications and essays. It's really, really confusing, but it doesn't have to be. What would your life be without lacking a clue on how to manage this? What if you had more than a clue? You had a plan. So you ready for the 12 mistakes? So go ahead and type that in chat while I take a sip of water. And again, if you're watching this on replay, please chat to yourself during this free, non-refundable workshop. Nothing like saying the same joke over and over again. Okay, so if you have your outline, and there should be a link on this page. Mistake number 1 is undue emphasis on the 40 years, not the 4. Undue emphasis on the 40 years, not the 4. Here's what I mean. To me, spending all this time, effort, and emotional energy on where are you going to college and what SAT, how many SATs should I take, subject tests, or should I take the ACT instead, or all these little tactical things, that's about as dumb as focusing only on rushing to the airport, but you have no idea where that flight is headed. I think it's crazy. If I had to pick one huge mistake, the biggest, most costly mistake that families make in this process, it's that. It's not understanding that college is a means to an end. Because if you don't plan, if you don't give thought to this, I'll share how we do it. But if you don't give thought to this and you end up switching majors and casting about and wasting all this time, you could be on the 6-year plan at $70,000 a year. So what we advocate is backwards planning. And what that means very simply, at least how, this is not a commercial for us. There is no, we're not pitching anything here. I'm just going to tell you how we handle this problem in our practice. And this is how we advocate that everyone do this, but nobody, ironically, nobody does this. So what we do first is we use an assessment. There's many of them that are out there. I actually have a career counselor, so I don't get bogged down in these details. It's something I wouldn't be good at. First, we uncover objectively how a student is wired. Some are more introverted, some are more extroverted, some are better at math and science, some are not. Some work, well in independently, some are more collaborative. And then the next step, it's very simple. We match that wiring to doing some research on careers and jobs where work doesn't actually feel like work, where a child can fit in, but also get off mom and dad's payroll by making, or the full ride scholarship by making a living at those fields. So then, and only then, will we, pick apart that universe of usually 8 or 10 or so careers and majors that lead those careers, and then back into a set of colleges that is reputable across a bunch of these majors and careers that lead to those careers. So it's backwards. That's why I said it's backwards planning, doing it in reverse. That is different. That is not what guidance counselors do. It's not what other college advisors do. But I think it is really almost financially suicidal to not think this way. So that's how we do it in our practice. And everyone can do that on their own in one way, shape, or form. Okay. Mistake number 2 is belief that things are the same as when you went to college. We're probably about the same age, having gone to college about 30 years ago. Listen, a lot has changed. I applied to one school personally, and things are a lot different than they used to be. You may be wondering, how did this happen? Well, how did yesterday's safety schools become today's reaches? How you may have these questions. How did Northeastern get so hard to get into? How did University of Miami get so hard to get into? Excuse me. Well, I'll tell you flat out, when I graduated high school in '86, Northeastern was not where the best and brightest kids went. Somehow, by the time we hit the middle 2000s, the second decade, Northeastern is practically an Ivy League school at this point. In 19, I think they received more than 62,000 applications and accepted 12,000 kids for 2,800 seats. How did that happen? Well, if you're curious, there's a great article in, I think this is Boston Magazine from a few years ago, how that points out how I would say easy, but how methodical Northeastern was about raising its profile. It's a controversial article. Other ways to do this are sort of slimy ways, lying about academic data like Emory, Tulane, and GW. My point of showing you all this is you shouldn't believe in rankings as the be-all and end-all. Pay attention to them, but please don't decide that that's the only way you're going to pick your college list. That's terrible. And if you're getting all these mailers, don't read into them, because colleges are marketing themselves. They do this so they can get more and more applications each year, like in the Northeastern example. Therefore, they can reject more people, and therefore they can be more selective, and therefore they can rise higher in their rankings. That's all it's about. Don't read into the brochures, the phone calls. Yeah, phone calls, the fake personalized emails, the texts, you name it. This is all a marketing system that a handful of marketing firms who specialize in college recruitment are hired to do on behalf of their colleges. All right. Because mistake number 3 is very closely related. Mistake number 3 is not getting or understanding that college admissions is about marketing, not a meritocracy. It's about marketing, not a pure meritocracy, right? So just the same way the colleges are marketing themselves, it really matters how a student markets him or herself, because it's not based on grades and scores only. And if you doubt me, just remember the recent lawsuit that went to the Supreme Court from an Asian American student who got rejected by Harvard despite perfect scores and outstanding academic achievements, whereas many people who were admitted in lieu of him, arguably, had lesser grades and scores, but they had other characteristics, such as their family went there, or they were recruited athletes, or there were other types of socioeconomic backgrounds. And the lawsuit that the Supreme Court heard had to do with whether it was allowable for Harvard or any college to factor in these soft, quote unquote, soft factors, race, ethnicity, whatever. And the answer was a resounding yes, it is okay to do that. Recent headed to jail, jailbirds, this example of Lori Loughlin and Felicity Huffman and all these guys, they should also let you bear in mind that this is not a pure meritocracy getting into college. What they did was something, that's really not that different from donating a lot of money to a college and to get your kid in. They just did it in an illegal and egregious and sloppy way with a really bad dude, a college advisor named Rick Singer. So, it's not a pure meritocracy. I guess that's my point. So what you have to be thinking about is, this is the most recent photo that we could come up with to illustrate this point. We have a very low budget here for graphics. So you need to think about how to position yourself if you are a student headed to college. So what does that mean? Well, positioning is a marketing term. So think of Avis. Avis, when they were coming up, they hired a firm. I actually, I'm not going to get sidetracked here, but I used to bartend at the Four Seasons in Boston, where the founder of Avis, his name was Calvin Barris, had a place long after he retired. And I remember talking to him. He was really nice about this actual thing I'm about to share with you here. Avis knew that they could not possibly compete with the behemoth Hertz Rent-A-Car. So finally, after going through many different advertising campaigns and I guess ad agencies, they determined to turn that negative, that weakness, into a strength. And their you may remember this or not if we're about the same age, but their slogan was, Avis, we're number 2, we try harder. So they position themselves as a scrappy underdog who's trying harder to earn your business as opposed to competing with Hertz on their own terms. So they leveraged. So you should think about this if you're a kid headed to school, or your son, your daughter is headed to college in the next couple of years, how to leverage your strengths to, when you finally make that, what I call closing arguments on your applications and your essays. How do you, instead of highlighting your weaknesses, how do you leverage your strengths the way Avis did? And you can think about this positioning as early as ninth grade, because that's when you start creating that body of work that will ultimately be judged. You need to answer this question. This is a huge question. It's not actually on the applications, though, which is ironic. But your question is, why should we take you compared to these I said 5,000, but if you're applying to a huge state school, it could be 90,000 other competitor applicants. Why should we take you? How would your son or your daughter answer that in a way that is meaningful? Don't say, well, she's a really hard worker. Well, she does a lot for charity. You need to come up with ways to differentiate. That's why I say it's more about marketing than a meritocracy. That's the fundamental issue. I feel like if we stop this presentation here, then you would have gotten enough value. You certainly would not be asking me for a refund for this non-refundable free webinar. Okay, that's still funny. Let's move on. I want to share two stats with you, 60-40 and 2/3. Let's take a look at each of these. What does 60-40 mean? Well, 60-40 means that approximately 60% of your college application, this is not coming from me, this is coming from a mentor of mine who's on the admissions committee of Princeton for 30 years, and he's like the burning bush of college admissions. So only 60% of the decision is based on your academic credentials, which include, yes, your grade point average, but also your rigor, how many challenging classes you took compared to how many you could have availed yourself of. So if you took 7 AP classes, but you could have taken 15, I had a client this year who took 17, and you're competing with another kid from maybe another high school, another part of the country, who took 7 classes also, but there weren't more than 7, he is going to be looked at more favorably than you are. So rigor is really important, but it's nuanced. And how you do in standardized tests. Yes, they are not going away in the near future, mostly because there's so much grade inflation that GPAs are artificially high. Standardized tests are one way, definitely not a perfect way, for admissions officers to get a feel or a sense for how a child will do in college. Again, it's not perfect, but it's still fairly objective, at least among, upper middle class or middle class families that take the SAT or ACT. All right, now let's talk about 2/3. 2/3, and again, not coming from me, so don't shoot the messenger, but 2/3 of any given incoming class at a college is reserved for special categories, for non-academic purposes. Some people, I remember reading a book where an admissions officer from Duke thought it might be as high as 80%. Whatever the number is, it's a large percentage that get in not due to their merits. It's not a meritocracy. So who am I talking about? Recruited athletes, legacies, people whose parents went there, families on the development list. You may be wondering what the hell that is. That is a list of ultra affluent families that the development officer, part of the college administration, is trying to recruit to donate money to the endowment. That's what the development list. So a development list candidate gets preferential treatment. Not necessarily rubber stamped, by the way, but preferential treatment in terms of getting into a certain school. So do underrepresented minorities. I'm not saying this to be racist or politically incorrect. And I happen to really like white people. I think everyone should have a white friend. And this is non-refundable. So is that joke. Okay. International students, also another special category that gets preference, mostly because they're full paying. Early decision applicants, also a big boost at many schools in terms of helping their chances of getting in. Low-income families, it's at many schools. Here is sort of a cheat sheet. This is actually from Princeton. This is my friend / mentor, business partner, who shared this, was kind enough to share this with me. Here are some of the personal, non-academic things that are considered. So you don't have to read all these, of course, but achievement, talent, leadership, applications, service, personal attributes, integrity, leadership, motivation, and maturity. Yeah, integrity is a big one, right? This is long before the Felicity and Lori scandals. But now I think character is almost like it's a new standardized test. Character is the new SAT, in my opinion. Super important to display strong character. Okay, you guys find this helpful? Just say yes in chat if you are. I'm just going to take another sip. Hope you are. Oh, good. Okay, good. Different, right? Yeah. Okay. Mistake number 4 is naivete about the truth. Naivete about the truth. College is a what? Business. College is a business. So if you're writing along, following along at home, keeping score with your outline, college is a business. And the corollary is, even if your child does not understand this, and this is not an actual photo, I hope, of your Alex P. Keaton child, they are in business too. The business of promoting themselves to get in where they want, and the business of maximizing their financial aid and merit aid packages. They need to look at themselves as a business. They are shareholders. They are sole shareholders of their corporation, of them Inc., Johnny Inc., and they're responsible for maximizing that value of that shareholder, for that shareholder. And they're in the business of getting a return on investment, a college ROI, CROI, college return on investment. That means 2 things: getting it for the lowest price possible, which we're about to talk about, as well as getting something more out of college than what you put into it. And that starts with the backward planning, just to recap. Does this make you or your child uncomfy? It's okay, because it's okay to be uncomfortable. The greatest results come from stepping out of your comfort zone. And that's why I keep harping on this concept that this is not really about the 4 years of college. This is about the 40 or 50 years after. It's a life skill. It's not a getting to college skill or strategy. It can be applied that way, but stepping out of your comfort zone and manning up or womaning up, putting on the big boy pants and sucking it up, that is so important to your personal growth, your child's personal growth. That's what it's all about here. Okay, switching gears now. We're going to talk about the money. Mistake number 5 is failure to understand the federal and institutional financial aid formulas. Failure to understand the federal and institutional financial aid formulas. So it's almost a misnomer the way I wrote that. There's really one formula, which is listed right here, but it's applied differently depending on what school you are applying to. Overuse of that word, and what methodology that they follow, and that's usually correlates to what financial aid forms or applications they require. So I'm going to work through all that with you right here. This is probably the most exciting part of the presentation. So strap in. Okay. So COA means cost of attendance. That means not just tuition, but also room and board and all the other BS fees. Oop, did I say BS? Can I say that? Okay. Cost of attendance minus EFC. EFC stands for your expected family contribution. How much the formulas dictate that you can contribute as a family for college. That is important. We're going to drill down on that in a moment. COA minus EFC equals need. If you've ever heard the term need-based aid, it's based on this. It's based on the cost of attendance minus your expected family contribution. What's left over is your financial need. And what colleges do with that number is give you money based on that, but also how much they have to give. Some schools are a lot more generous than others, so they rarely will meet all of your financial need. There's about 60 colleges in the country that do that, but there's about 4,000 total. So it's not close to a majority. So expected family contribution is what they think that you can afford for 1 year. The lower your expected family contribution, the more need you'll show. So you want to lower your expected family contribution, because the more you do that, the greater your eligibility will be for the good stuff, the free money that doesn't have to be repaid, as well as loans. And like I said before, it's different depending on what forms your college requires you to file. The FAFSA and the CSS profile are the two main forms or financial aid applications. Every school takes the FAFSA. Some schools take the CSS profile. We'll talk a little bit more. One of the flaws in this process, this is just a 30,000 foot view, is that the calculation of what you can pay does not include expenses for the most part, or your cost of living. So what that implies is you could live in a really affluent, high cost, high property tax area of the country. I'm in Long Island. You might be too. You might not be. It could be California. Sometimes we have some Californians showing up on this before they move out of that state. Whoops. And you could have the same income, savings, whatever, as someone in the middle of the country, like Sheboygan, Wisconsin, and you'll have the same EFC, which is bizarre, but that's just the way the formula works. So that's the flaw. So let's look at, well, in terms of the expected family contribution, you are penalized differently depending on if income is in a parent's name, which usually is, or savings is in a parent's name versus a child's name. So I want to show you here is that your EFC is increased by 20 to 25% of the amount you have saved for your child. So what does that mean? I'll tell you in a minute. Let's go over the income first. Real cliffhanger there. The IRS looks at all of your income. So that means untaxed income also. Not the IRS. The financial aid formulas contemplate all of your income. It's different than the IRS. So if you have someone graduating 2021, they're going to look at your taxable and your untaxed income, your adjusted gross income, as well as any, pensions received or child support or you name it, all of your income from 2 years prior, from 2019. So if you have someone graduating 2022, they're looking at your 2020 income. Okay. If that number from 2 years ago is extremely out of date, which it is for many people who have been struggling with the economic disruption from the coronavirus, then that's not going to show up anywhere on the financial aid forms. But the good news is that you can appeal your financial aid award, and I'm going to spend a fair amount of time on that. All right, now let's get back to assets. Let's say hypothetically you had $100,000 saved in your child's name. Well, that would reduce eligibility for aid by 20 or 25%, 20 grand or $25,000 per year. If that same $100,000 is in a parent's name, you are penalized at only $5,640. So you're penalized far more severely by having money in your child's name than in your name. And we're going to talk about all this stuff with a little more detail. Again, I start at the high level and drill down. If you have money saved in an exempt account that's off of your financial aid balance sheet, legally, thank you very much, ethically, thank you very much, then there is no penalty because there are exempt assets. And I guess I could go through those if you want me to, but if you don't want me to, I'll just skip it. Should I skip it? Oh, just kidding. I'm going to go over it with you. So, so just again, to sum up here, money in your kids' names penalizes you far more than money in your names. Okay. So let's talk about what goes in and what does not go in the financial aid calculations. These are the print instructions, which are kind of hard to find these days, from the FAFSA. And this is where you'll find what counts against you. Investments include stocks, bonds, mutual funds, etc., 529s, blah, blah, blah. And then investments do not include blah, 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 which I'm going to get into. And then business value. That's a key loophole also. So I just want to show you the basis for what's about to come now. But we are going to talk about moving money around, sheltering it, not hiding it, but moving it from one place to another in order to qualify for more money. But I just want to point out to you, and I'm not a financial advisor, so I'm just telling you this with general terms here, You also have to consider not just the benefits, the increased eligibility for aid, but also the negatives. Like, what's it going to cost you potentially in taxes or penalties if you're withdrawing money from places? And then the second part is you have to understand what the hell you're putting your money into. What are the fees? How long do you have to keep it there? All sorts of stuff like that. You need to be very circumspect about doing this. And I see plenty of parents either about to shoot themselves in the feet by just rushing headstrong into this without calculating or contemplating everything, I should say. So it really pays to be strategic and contemplative about all this before you make any moves. I'm just laying out to you the strategies here. I'm not holding anything back, but I need to tell you this again and again in different words. It doesn't work for everyone, but when it works beautifully. Okay. So you may be surprised to learn that most aid from colleges goes to people who make six-figure incomes, high income earners. The average discount, as I'm giving this in 2020, the average discount off of tuition from a private college is more than 52%, according to the National Association of Collegiate Business Officers. At any given school, roughly 25% or so of the families are paying full boat, only about 25%. They are subsidizing the other 75%. There's actually more merit funding than there is need-based funding. So if you don't qualify for need-based, and not everyone does, especially my clients, it's okay. It may not be terrible because there's more merit funding out there. And you may be surprised to learn that expensive private colleges can actually cost less out of pocket than cheaper state schools. You may be wondering, how is that possible? The answer is that private schools have larger endowments. They have more money to give, whereas state schools just don't. So they may start at a lower price, but the net price is more important than the sticker price. It's what you're going to pay after the discounting, because there's a whole lot of discounting going on here. So, okay. Mistake number 6 is related to this formula stuff I wanted to get into more. Mixing up parent stuff with child stuff. So remember, assets are super important. Assets or savings in a child's name penalize you 400% more than parents' assets. So I just did 2 columns here. Child assets mean generally custodial accounts. Under the federal rules, the 529 is considered a parent asset, so you're only penalized at 5% and change, not 20 or 25%. That is better. The reason I put an asterisk there is a lot of private schools who have their own money, they can do whatever they want. So they don't all, I can't prove this, by the way, but in my experience, they do not all penalize the 529 more benignly as a parent asset. Many penalize you more than they're supposed to under the federal rules, because they go by their own rules. I just had a situation like that a couple of weeks ago, trying to negotiate more money from a small liberal arts school in Rhode Island, and they pointed to a 529 and said that's why you're not getting any more money. And I said, well, look, that 529, you should only be counting about 5% against us, so that should reduce our eligibility by like $3,000, not the 25 that you're saying. And the response was, well, sorry, that's just how we do it. So these are rules of thumb, and they're generally true, but there always are exceptions. Okay, mistake number 7 is including your primary residence or your retirement accounts in your net worth. Including your primary residence or your retirement accounts, excuse me, in your net worth, because those are exempt on the FAFSA, the main financial aid form. You should not disclose the value of your primary residence on the FAFSA. It says specifically, don't do that. And your retirement accounts, meaning IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, pensions, anything that's considered a retirement account under the tax laws, excuse me, are exempt on the FAFSA and therefore should not be disclose on the FAFSA. So if you are completing your FAFSA by yourself, it'll say, it'll ask you a question, what's the value of your investments? And then it'll say very specifically, do not include these 4 things. And the first 2 are the value of your primary home and the value of your retirement accounts. Now, here's the deal. If you make the mistake of including those, inadvertently, what you're really doing is sabotaging your own eligibility. You will get less money from your colleges if you artificially inflate your expected family contribution, if you include stuff that should not be included. That's the danger here. So now that you've seen this mistake number 7 and you've written it down and you're going to sleep with this sheet under your pillow tonight, you will never make that mistake. All right. So I told you I was going to do this. I don't know if you can see my mouse here, but the 4 exemptions on the FAFSA, I'm just going down the left column here. Primary residence retirement accounts, annuities, that's exception number 3. So I'm not holding anything back. I wasn't going to say there are 4 exemptions and here are 2. And if you want the other 2, you got to pay me. No, here is everything. Okay. And those are and life insurance. So in the middle column here, everything is exempt on the FAFSA, but the CSS profile, the institutional methodology, this is a form that is followed by approximately 400 colleges out of the 4,000 in the country. The primary residence is not exempt on the CSS profile. They ask about that. The value less any outstanding mortgages, plus a whole lot of other questions. The big difference between the FAFSA and the profile is FAFSA is about 100 questions, relatively straightforward on its face, although I just highlighted a couple of mistakes. And there's more to come, don't worry. But the CSS profiles is 200 questions and probably 10 times as hard. It's so invasive. It's a root canal without Novocaine. I hate it. I don't do these forms in our practice. My wife, Pearl, for some strange reason, likes this stuff. She files like 200 or 300, 400 of these every year. It's nuts. They are very complicated. Okay. Retirement accounts, exempt on the FAFSA and exempt but disclosable, which is weird. And I'm hearing myself say this. I'm like, God, that doesn't really make sense. But CSS profile colleges do not require you to disclose your retirement accounts, but they claim they do not penalize you for that. I think that's true for the most part, not 100% of the time. Okay, annuities exempt on the FAFSA, but some annuities are exempt on the CSS profile. They distinguish between retirement annuities, which are exempt, and non-retirement annuities, which are not exempt. Life insurance is exempt on both the FAFSA and the CSS profile. So if you own life insurance with cash value, that does not go anywhere on these forms. And if you're thinking about moving money, and again, this does not work for everyone. I'm like twitching here because I practiced law for 5 years. And okay, but if you are thinking about taking money from one area where it penalizes you, like in your child's name or in your name, and trying to improve your eligibility just by shifting it into an exempt account, life insurance might be one of the things, one of the ways to do this. Okay, if you can get by all the negatives. But any of these mistakes, if you disclose anything by accident that should not be disclosed, you will lose money, maybe tens of thousands of dollars. All right, let's talk about some other ways to screw up. Okay, so negative, but hey, if you avoid these mistakes, it's positive. You'll make more money. Mistake number 8 is blowing priority deadlines. Priority deadlines. There's so many things to keep track of in this whole process. Every month for our clients, we do a monthly, here's what you need to be doing now webinar. And the reason we do that is because it's so easy to not get this information. So you need reminders. If you are organized, you gotta be hyper aware of all these deadlines. And because if you miss a deadline, then you could actually cost yourself some money. So an example is early decision or early action, ED or EA, for admission to college. Those might be in a normal year, November 1, November 15th, December 1st. Okay, fine. But there are also, in addition to the admissions deadlines, there are priority financial aid deadlines. Okay. Each college has one. You've got to look up the deadline for each college. There is no universal deadline where everything is due. People ask a lot, hey, when's the FAFSA due? The answer is whenever the college says it's due. It's not like taxes are due April 15th. It is unique to each college, and you've got to look them up. Here's a pro tip. Here's what we do. We find out the earliest deadline that a client has for any of their 10, 12, 15 colleges, and we file all the forms before that deadline. Just put them in bed so you don't have to freak out about it or worry about it. If you blow a deadline, you will sabotage yourself. You'll cheat yourself out of money. Okay, moving right along here. Cooking with gas. Mistake number 9 is for business owners. This mistake has to do with overvaluing your business. Overvaluing your business. This is so easy to do, and this is what I'm about to share here. Did I already say the thing about if I stopped here, this would be worth it? And I know I said the thing about non-refundable, but if I stopped here and you're a business owner, this could save you, thousands of dollars. I very rarely come across CPAs who know this without my having told them this first, because this is something that's buried in the rules. Here, I'm just going to tell you the story because this will help you understand how to value a business. So we have these clients who, before they sold the building, they were in the building next to us in Glenwood Landing, which is right on the water in Long Island, North Shore of Long Island, right across from Port Washington. Nice little, cute little town. And they do excavations for county parks and pretty big business. So Tina called me when she got no money after she did all the forms herself, and she's not dumb at all. She's very smart. They run a pretty nice business. So one of the schools that her daughter was dying to get into, Paige, was NYU. So she said, "Hey, I hope it's not too late, but Paige got into a bunch of schools and we got no money. Is there anything you can do to help me?" I'm like, "Well, it's kind of late. I'm not sure I can really do anything," but I agreed to meet with her because she said she'd pay me for my time. Kidding. I did not charge her. And I noticed immediately once I reviewed what she had written on her financial aid forms had to do with how she valued her business. Her issue was that she overvalued the business. She took the numbers from her financial statements that she prepares for her equipment lenders. However, the big issue is that by doing so, she used real world common sense numbers as opposed to something from the bizarro world of financial aid. And in financial aid, most small businesses are worth zero. And without getting into it, it's not important. I already glossed over that in an earlier slide about business value, but that was the issue, that she overvalued her business. So we quickly refiled her, we meaning my wife, who does the real work around here, and went through a couple rounds of comments with NYU and a bunch of other schools. And here's what happened: instead of zero, she got 25 grand, but it was per year because she got the same amount 3 years running. So that's a $75,000 mistake by overvaluing her business. And that's why I'm telling you that story. That's how important it is to understand the rules, particularly if you're self-employed. There's a whole lot of other loopholes and things that are beyond the scope of this presentation, but I just want you to know this, okay? Businesses are usually worth zero on the FAFSA. Okay, moving right along. Mistake number 10 is about divorced and separated parents, and that has to do with using the wrong parent. Wrong. W-R-O-N-G, wrong. Okay. I'm talking about financial aid wrong, not real life mistake wrong. I'm talking about how the formulas want parents in divorce and separated situations to file these forms. So first of all, it's the custodial parent who files. The custodial parent is the parent that the kid resides with. It has nothing to do with who declares whom on the tax returns. That's IRS stuff. I'm talking about Department of Education stuff. The Department of Education cares only about which parent the child resides with the majority of time. So if you're doing a FAFSA, it's only the custodial parent who should fill out the FAFSA. Now, the CSS profile will either ask a little or require more information about the non-custodial family. So it really depends, again, on what colleges you're applying to. Another comment here is that it doesn't matter if you have a separate agreement where one parent's only going to pay 75% of its in-state tuition. The financial aid office doesn't care about the agreement. They care about the parent's ability, the non-custodial parent's ability and resources. So they may be on the hook for only, $20-something thousand a year, but if they have the ability to pay $100,000 a year, then that's what is going to go into their calculation. So just understand that. Okay, one more comment. What if one parent won't cooperate? The deadbeat dad. It's never deadbeat mom, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately. But if you can't get the non-custodial parent to provide his information to a CSS profile school, most of the time the school will say, okay, just fill out this waiver, or it's like an affidavit. You can't find him. You did your best, and they'll let you proceed. Most schools, not all. Okay. Moving along. Mistake number 11 is not applying at all. Not applying at all. 53% of families fail to do this. 53%. I don't know if I forgot the line there. I don't know where that stat came from besides the internet, but there's a whole lot of money left on the table every year. There's always articles in, I don't know, February, March, somewhere around then. USA Today, Nerd Wallet, whatever that is. 2.9 billion left on the table, stuff like that. I really can't get a handle. I don't know how much it matters, but I know there's a ton of mistakes and a ton of people never even bother filing. I hope that's not you after you sat through this, because in my opinion, everyone should file. There's multiple reasons to file for financial aid, even if you think you're not going to qualify. One of them might be that the college wants you to, no matter what. Many schools don't want you to, but some schools, who am I thinking about? Fordham, near us here in the Bronx, New York, NYU. A lot of schools say if you want to be considered for any money, whether it's financial need-based money or merit aid, you have to file your FAFSA and your CSS profile. So, you should file it. What else? It could also help your kids' chances of getting in if you make 7 figures and you're showing financial strength on your financial aid forms. That's great too. We always encourage our 7-figure and high 6-figure earning families that we work with to show financial strength, because not only can it help their kids get in, but indirectly it could help them get merit aid. And that's outside the scope of this conversation, but that's the main point here. Okay, so everyone should file. Mistake number 12 is starting too late. Starting too late. Mucho tardio. The later you start, the fewer your choices. The later you start, the fewer your choices. You don't want to leave anything on the table. You want to get all this, get all this stuff done as the fastest, but the most accurate and strategic way you can, because more choices means better results. You don't have to settle for something you don't have to settle for. So it's really important that you start early. You may be wondering, when is the best time to start? Is it in utero? Well, maybe that's a little aggressive, but understand that your body of work, or your student's body of work, begins in 8th grade. But I will just tell you, this is I told you this anyway in general, but this is in no means a commercial for our services. I know that my advice is important, and it does help people position themselves by the time they write their applications in between 11th and 12th grade. However, I also know that most 9th grade kids are not ready to work with me or any college advisor. It's just a waste of money. So, like I said, I know I could be effective, but I can't be in a position where I want the child's success more than he or she wants it. So that's why I'm saying, even though it makes sense to think about this stuff in ninth grade, you may not be ready to work with anyone in ninth grade. So that's why this is one of the many reasons that we require an interview of anyone that is considering working with us and we're considering taking on as clients. All right, mistake number 13, bonus mistake. Yes, you're getting so much more than you thought. Okay, this is a great one. I like to finish with this one. Is assuming that your award is your final offer. Assuming that your award is your final offer. Last year, we had a child who received a really nice award from University of Chicago, $16,784 in a scholarship, and then a Pell Grant of another $6,000. So you're looking at, $22,700. And then we negotiated that a little bit, showed them some circumstances that they didn't really know about, and they bumped that up to, I guess, just the top one. The 16,700 became 37,784, and then we came back and said, you know what? I still don't think you're getting it right. So they caved and gave us another $3,000. That was a huge swing for our clients last year. And I have so many of these awards. Some are smaller. Honestly, sometimes we strike out too. But I think this is a banner time for a number of reasons, including the colleges are scrambling and you have more leverage to negotiate, to ask for more money. So this year in March, a client of ours got $29,000, and then the same one. Is that the same one twice? No, I'm sorry. $29,000, the Rensselaer Leadership Award, and then they changed and added another $5,000 for the Rensselaer Recognition Award, and then they bumped that up from $5,000 to $17,000 for a total of, because this is merit aid. This is equivalent to $68,000 when you multiply it times 4. Not bad for a little bit of letter writing, right? So that's really important. I'm going to talk to you about how to do this, how to create the situation for yourself. Just remember that the best defense against these overpriced colleges is a good offense. I think that was from Bobby Knight, the former Indiana University coach, guy who threw a chair across the floor in a game once. That to me translates into having offers from other colleges to play off against the college you want to go to. In that last example of RPI, we had offers from WPI, Worcester Polytechnic, and Stevens, and other schools. So this is great to have leverage. It's also very important to share new information with a college. What does new information mean? I'll talk about it. And don't be afraid. And even if you're not comfortable, remember, you need to step out of your comfort zone. The life lesson here from life coach Andy, motivational speaker Andy here, is play colleges off against each other mercilessly and ruthlessly. Think, I'm going to get every last dollar from you, sucker, that I can get. So let's talk about the anatomy of an appeal. And again, this is covered in my book, How to Negotiate Your Crappy Financial Aid Merit Aid Offer. Start with some new information they don't already know from your financial aid forms, or maybe it was disclosed in what the CSS profile calls a special circumstances box, which is really inadequate in general. So what's new information? It could be a change in income. Maybe your income drops. Remember, financial aid is based on tax returns from 2 years ago. So if something has happened since then that makes things appear that makes things appear on paper far more rosy than the reality, then you should tell the financial aid office about that, and that's a solid basis for an appeal. So, too, are unusual expenses. It's not usual expenses. Not I pay a lot in property taxes. They know that. That's not new information. An unusual expense is, well, I did support a sick relative. My mother-in-law moved in with me. She busts my chops all the time too, but I just want more money, not emotional support. Or I went through a horrible divorce and I've got crazy legal bills. My partner screwed me. We're trying to separate from each other, and now we're in a lawsuit. That type of thing. That none of that stuff goes on the financial aid form. So therefore it's got to be disclosed in an appeal to improve your lousy, lowball, crappy offer. It's really anything they call special circumstances. It's unusual stuff that bears on your ability to pay for college that they wouldn't have known about otherwise. Because financial aid officers, and to some extent admissions, even though they wouldn't say this, are able to use what they refer to as professional judgment. That's the term of art that they rely on to be able to consider things outside of the proverbial boxes in a financial aid form. Boxes in electronic form, but none the same. This is all about stuff that doesn't fit cleanly within the four corners of the financial aid applications. Another tip here is when you are appealing your financial aid offer, send a copy to admissions. If you're appealing a merit aid offer, I wouldn't send it to financial aid because they're not stakeholders. But admissions officers are always stakeholders. They care about whether you come or you go. They care about the yield. That's the ratio of kids who are admitted compared to who matriculate. So they need to give you a couple more $1,000 to grease the skids to get you to sign up. They might do that. What's another stakeholder? If you are a recruited athlete, include the coach. See what the coach can do. Sometimes they can help. Sometimes they can't. Anyone who you have a rapport with at all. And always not only be respectful and polite as opposed to aggressive and obnoxious. Don't be that. But you should always first respect that they have a procedure and a protocol for how they want you to do this. So if they have a form for you to fill out and explain all this stuff, don't, call them up. Don't stop by their office. Follow their procedure. It's on their websites, and if you can't find it on their website, call them up and ask. Here's another example. This is just to show you, it's got a long history of this. This is an initial offer of $23,518. We were able to negotiate that to $53,540. Again, because we followed that exact same recipe I just mentioned to you. Polite, showed other offers, told them about new information they didn't know about, yada, yada, yada. That was terrific. Sometimes it's not pretty. It takes a lot of persistence. This was from a correspondence I had with a client. Also this year, they got denied. One school denied the son from anything. And then we went to the other top choice school who was responsive. And he said, you know what, write another appeal. So what happened was we ended up getting another bumped up from one son went from $15,000 to $30,000. These are twins, and the other child, the daughter, went from $10,000 to $28,000. So when you total it up, writing these letters, 1 year of results times 4 is $132,000 extra above and beyond their initial offers, just for being persistent and asking them and playing schools off against each other exactly the same way I told you. So this is why I say these workshops and this information that you're getting can be worth, when I say it's worth 10,000, it can be worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. Well, in this case, $132,000. That's a lot of lettuce. Okay, so the last part I want to talk to you about is producing. Showing you the money. That's a big part of what we do. We consider ourselves producers. Sometimes it's $132,000 out of thin air. Sometimes it's a lot more mundane. But when you work with us, you should be optimizing your eligibility for any type of money that's available, need-based or merit-based. We do all the financial aid forms accurately and on time. We help with negotiating. It's all stuff. If you're interested, we can talk about it, because we're at the end of the training. And I just want to ask you, did this motivate you? Do you feel like a little better? Do you feel like, you feel like you can get something done here? Can you see this approach could work for you? And if you're with me live, give me a Y in chat, the letter Y. And if you're on Memorex, do whatever you want. Can you see the financial and emotional dangers of not having a plan? Well, what would it mean to you if you could save thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars off of the cost of your dream college? What if you had no stress about what colleges they could get into, what to write essays about, applications or visits, or what you need to be doing when, as opposed to, I don't even know where to start. I hear that so many times. How much time and money could you save if you had a solid plan? Well, like many times in life, you have at least two choices. You can just wing it, or you could follow a system, a tested and proven system to get results. So the offer, hopefully you feel like I did get to earn the right to spend a few minutes with you talking about what we call the P4 program. I already gave you a spoiler. The final P is produce, showing you the money. So let me just explain that to you. If you're cool with that, I'll take a sip of water. Okay. Thank you. Yes, I see. Awesome. All right, let me buzz through this. But first, I don't want you to think that I'm trying to get everyone, to talk to us or to hire us. This is only for families who want to multiply odds of getting to competitive colleges and qualify for 25, 50%, maybe more discounts. And yes, to work with us requires an investment, but you can see the results others have gotten from our program. And, most of the time you need to commit a little bit of time each month to be able to benefit. Sometimes you don't, sometimes less, but on average, we tell people be prepared to commit at least an hour or two per month. If we're working with your child, they cannot be entitled or spoiled or unwilling. They have to be coachable. That's why we require the interview. So we have a P4 system. The first P is plan, which means backward planning. And I talked about this before. We uncover wiring. We compare each child's pattern in that assessment compared to the millions of other people who have taken this particular assessment. We isolate 6, 10, maybe more careers where kids can love what they do and actually earn a living. Here's an example of the assessment that my wife took probably 6 years ago. And not coincidentally, she was very high in numerical. You can see that in the upper left here, working with numbers. And that's a good thing because she does all the financial aid forms in our practice, right? Even though she's an attorney like me, that was very gratifying. The second P is path. So it's plan, then path. Path means that we are backing into a set of colleges that are reputable across a cluster of majors, not one major, but 4 or 5 majors. And then we also factor in, East Coast, West Coast, big, small, medium. Do you like this? The mascot, the hoodie? Okay. And then we use tools to be able to replicate as near as possible all the factors that an admissions officer will consider. So Naviance might look at 2 things, your grades and your scores. Well, here, grades, courses and level, meaning rigor, whether you've won any awards, your actual SAT or ACT scores, your activities in school, your level of talent, your outside activities, your volunteerism, your character traits, and so much more, your ethnicity, etc. This is proprietary software available only to private clients, and we use this, and it helps us create a strategic and balanced list where kids generally get in to 70% of the schools that they should get into. That's a good result. The third P, plan, path, position, is about reverse engineering exactly what admissions officers want so you can serve it up to them. We do a lot of work on the essays and the applications to discover precisely what admissions officers want to see in your closing argument. I'll explain that in a minute. You need to answer the question why you should take me compared to thousands of others of identical kids. We help with interviews and visits, assuming those are going to happen again, what to say, who to say to, beyond the campus tour and info sessions. That's very specific advice and unusual advice, I might add. This is called a typewriter. It's like a keyboard, and it produces something like the internet, but made of wood. But in terms of the essays, we do a lot of work with kids on the essays because we have a team of former admissions officers from super competitive schools who work with our kids on the essays, not write them, but edit and brainstorm and suggest. This is almost like having the answers to an exam before you take it. but totally legal, not that sleazy sounding. And the fourth P I mentioned before is produce. Show me the money. Identifying schools that will bribe your kid, that are good matches for your child, and preparing all the forms on time and accurately. You'll never blow a deadline. You'll never miss out on a key timeline. We support you through the entire process of annoying and maddening follow-up requests from colleges. Some are substantive. The majority are not. Hey, we didn't get your FAFSA. Oh my God, what do you mean? Oh wait, we filed it in November. It's now April. What are you talking about? That type of stuff. It's horrible. And then we're in your corner for negotiating appeals. What would all this be worth to you? How many people do you know who chose the wrong major and career and went down a long path before they hopefully tried to reverse things? What's it worth to avoid that? What's it worth to avoid paying full boat and avoid mortgaging yourself or your retirement up to your eyeballs? Our services, the investment for our services is less than one small scholarship, because you'll save thousands upon thousands of dollars off the cost of college. And this is hard to quantify, but get into a great school that will help your kids prepare for satisfying and lucrative careers and lives. And I don't know how to quantify the stress relief, but that's the number one thing we hear over and over again from our clients. Wow, you took all the stress away. Just to do the math, if you get one extra scholarship worth $5,000 a year from our program, what would the value of our program be? I do the math for you, $20,000. And like I showed you before with the twins who got $132,000, they got a real deal from us. Then there's the whole cost of not planning. I'm just winging it. Maybe your child won't be accepted where they should have gotten into. And then they'll have to forego whatever advantages might have come with that college. Or maybe they'll get in, but you won't be able to afford to send them. Or if you don't plan, you could end up not only having your kids get stuck with crushing debt, that's a huge hole to crawl out from under, but you too, if you're not careful. It could be $200,000 or more. Easily the cost of not planning. So when you work with us, what you really get is clarity and confidence. You have a rock solid game plan of exactly what you need to do and when you need to do it, and to get an almost unfair advantage over other applicants. You can avoid admissions Armageddon by crafting a realistic, strategic, and balanced list of colleges that can help your child succeed after college. And of course, the ability to win scholarships and aid so you can comfortably afford your child's dream college. Instead of you having to confess to them, you know what, I'm sorry, I just didn't do my part. You've come this far, you're on third base, you're rounding home, carpooled them for 15 years, practices, games, tournaments, rehearsals, other activities that cost a small fortune. What good is all that if you don't take action now, take this opportunity now to get them what they need during the most challenging parts of their lives? Don't you want to look back from this 1 year from now and feel great that you did everything you could to help them succeed? I sure hope you do. So go ahead and go to getcollegeplan.com. If there's a button on this screen, you can click on that, and you'll be whisked over to fill out a short application. We will review it, and we'll set up a time to talk if we think that we can help add value. Our clients, I told you before, they get into great schools like MIT, Cloud9, getting into Cornell. We never could have done this without you. Huge thanks. And this was a follow-up text from Julie. The admissions rep said this was an incredibly competitive year for Cornell, and we had exceptional applications. Guess who made all this possible? We are so grateful to you. So much was based on your sound advice. We get feedback like this all the time. Anna got into Columbia. Thank you for all your help. Got off Penn's wait list. I told you there's ups and downs frequently. It's stressful. It's really cool when we get feedback like this and we hear about our clients' results. And maybe you'll end up saying something like this to us if we end up working together. From the moment I walked into your office, I felt an enormous weight lifted off my shoulders. So go ahead and apply today, getcollegeplan.com. And I'm looking forward to talking with you further. Thanks for watching this presentation, and